Now, let's talk about an automobile race team owner as it relates to your management style. We don't want to be so strict in the roles and responsibilities we give people. It shouldn't be black and white. When we can, we want to give them some guidelines and parameters to let talent express their personality and fill in the gaps from A to Z. We may need to tell them where to start or what it needs to be like when it's completed. When an owner interviews a new driver for his team, he evaluates how the new driver might fit in with the rest of the team and what his specific talents may be. He assigns him a crew chief, and they put together a team, and then they let the driver use his talents to try to get to the front of the race and finish in the highest possible position. It's about giving a sense of freedom, autonomy, and ownership. What's also happening is you're saying, I trust you. Our opening keynote address is about staying in your lane as a leadership strategy. Guy Bucey is someone who gets this. After two tours as a Marine in Iraq, thank you for your service, he came home with a broken foot and PTSD. He started working with wood as a form of therapy and was looking for a place to harness his woodworking skills. Inova offered him a job as a floor manager, and he jumped at the opportunity to turn his hobby into a career. Based in Altamont, New York, Inova with nearly 100 employees and over 70,000 square feet of manufacturing space, specializes in wall beds and other niche small space furniture. Guy quickly worked his way up the corporate ladder and is now the CEO of the company. Although he isn't working with wood hands-on, he loves overseeing the daily logistics of the manufacturing plant. Before I welcome Guy to the stage, I want to take a moment to thank Blum as the sponsor of this keynote. Representing Blum at the conference are Mike Lawrence and Chris Miller. Mike and Chris, are you here? Thank you. Now, without further delay, please join me in welcoming Guy Bucey.
Is the mic on? Yep, good. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, good morning, everybody. Just give me 2 seconds. I'm going to pop up a quick note for myself. So as the great introduction talks about, we're going to stay in our lane today. Staying in our lane is great because it's going to make us a better leader by empowering us, by empowering our employees, so we can focus on our business and grow our business. My name is obviously Guy Bucey, and I'm the CEO of Inova. We make multifunctional furniture for the hospitality, commercial housing, student housing, and different government contracts. Just so you guys can put a face with the name, this is some of the product that we create. So we have a few different lines of furniture that we do for different hotels and, again, student housing and those type of items. And I like to start out with a video of our manufacturing plant. We're extremely proud of our manufacturing plant. We're extremely proud of what we've accomplished over the last 8 years and where we are. And I also like to show everybody so that you understand where I come from. I'm not a guy who sits behind a desk or at a college somewhere and studies reports from people and looks at graphs and statistics and does all those things. I'm in the fight just like you guys are every single day. I am out there on my floor every single day trying to improve my people, looking at profit and loss statements, trying to get better customers and more customers, and grow and make my manufacturing plant more efficient. I'm truly your peer who is here to just show you how we've helped and succeeded. So as we walk through, you'll see a few things. Number one, you're going to see two gentlemen that are completely blown away that there's this flying plastic thing going around our facility. There they are. So after we got over the shock and awe of seeing their manager walk around with the remote control thing floating in the air, you'll notice that our factory is just very smooth. There isn't forklifts running around all over the place. There isn't a supervisor running because there's a machine on fire in the background. And ultimately, our goal is to not make ourselves look busy. We want to be highly organized, highly efficient, and really, really good at our processes so that we don't need to look like chickens with our heads cut off. And that's the value. And that is what we look for. So through our modest 70,000 square foot facility, we produce roughly around 180 to 200 beds a day. That 180, 200 beds a day when we first started was 2 beds a day, maybe. We had about 12 people inside of our facility. We were 12,000 square feet, and we made roughly about $500,000 in sales. Today, we're roughly 92 people. I think I have a 93rd starting on Monday of next week. We closed out our books at $22 million in sales last year, 70,000 square foot manufacturing plant with incredible sales coming in for the next 2 years. I love this photo because this is everybody who makes it happen, and these are the people that allow all of this to occur. Some of the awards that we've had over the years is we're 5 years running on top 100 woodworking companies. We were awarded the Disney Supplier of the Year out of 40,000 vendors for Disney. Had #1 customer service, and we just bend over backwards and make sure that our quality is great and do what we say we are going to do. We won the People's Choice Awards for our new Optima Sofa wall bed that we have. I was gracious enough to be honored with the 40 under 40. And last but absolutely not least, the Capital District softball champions. So who am I? Well, I'm definitely not anybody special. I come from a small town, joined the Marine Corps when I was 18 years old. It's a very funny slide for me personally because I don't really like to talk about myself. It's something I usually kind of skirt through and get past. But today I'm going to talk about it a little bit more than I normally do when I'm speaking to people because I think it's very important to understand this when we're trying to stay in our lane. I've been honored and privileged to be able to come in and speak in front of you, and I do not take that lightly, and I want to provide as much value as I possibly can. I joined the Marine Corps because I had an extreme patriotic urge to go in and serve my country. Not because I wasn't doing well in life or because I was some struggling, teenager who couldn't find his way or do those type of things. I was actually an amateur professional golf player who had a full ride to Arizona State University. Trust me, when I went home and told my family that I was going to boot camp in a week, they were very, very surprised. When I got in the Marine Corps, I was a machine gunner, infantry machine gunner, did 2 tours to Iraq, and was wondering, how am I going to take being a machine gunner and being a specialist for 3 different weapon systems and turn that into a civilian job? Well, there's not too many jobs that offer the ability for people who are machine gunners a career path. So I needed to look at what are the other values that the Marine Corps provides. What's the one thing that they've been telling me since literally day one that we provide in the Marine Corps? And that's leadership. Every Marine is a leader. Every single Marine. And it's a pretty good thing because we're one of the best, if not the best, fighting force in the world. So we've obviously gotten something right. And I took the leadership aspect of my Marine Corps career very, very seriously. I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps when I got out, had a platoon underneath me in Iraq our second time around, and made sure that troop welfare and those people that are helping us to accomplish our mission were my #1 priority. As the introduction states, I started utilizing woodworking as a therapeutic hobby for myself after being injured and some of the things that I had gone through, and wanted to start my own woodworking business and start making $10,000, $15,000 tables, and thought there was going to be customers flying in from every corner of the world to buy my stuff. I quickly found out that that is not the case, and people don't want to spend that much money on furniture. So I started to look for a part-time job. When I got into Inova, it was really cool. Gave me the ability to continue my woodworking path and look at those type of things, but there was something Inova did not have, and that was any leadership. We had an incredible product. We had some really big-name customers at the time, but we were failing. We weren't doing well. We still had very low sales, very inefficient, and not making money. And I say this because There's tons of people out there who have the technology, who have the great connections and customer connections and industry connections, have a really cool product and neat product that people want to buy. But if you lack the leadership and the skill set for leaders within your company, you will not grow. Too far. So with that said, the goal for me today is to hope that you guys walk out of here and understand that leadership is the most powerful tool that you have. Bottom line. I want you guys to be able to understand how to take stock in your staff, to look at the people that you've employed or have employed and ultimately are going to employ. And then I want to talk about why it's so important that we stay in our lanes, depending on where we are within our companies. And we're going to talk about a few tools, a few resources, a few ways for us to become better leaders, and some of the big things that I focus on specifically to become a better leader and do better at my job. And you'll hear me say leader over and over and over and over again because I hate supervisor, I hate manager, I hate boss, I hate those type of titles. Hate them. You are here to help your people and lead your people, nothing else. Remove the chip off your shoulder. All right, maybe, yep, okay. So how are we gonna do that? Well, there's one big thing that I need from everybody today, and that is to have big ears and big eyes. It's super easy to come in and criticize every single thing you hear. I'm putting myself out here as a peer to all of you to let you guys know how we do things and the things that have succeeded for us. You can knock me down and say that's crazy and da-da-da and do all those type of things, or you could have big ears and big eyes and try to manipulate and get the value out of it that you can then take back to your companies to help your people, yourself, and everyone else succeed around you. So I just ask that we have big ears, big eyes, try to find the value that's out there. And secondly, I'm going to break the rule a little bit. I like people to ask questions as we're going along here, not to wait until the end. Again, I'm here to talk to you, and I feel the value comes mainly from the dialogue, not just me up here running my lips. So if people have questions, want clarity, have particular examples and things like that that are happening at their current facilities right now, raise your hand, we'll pause right in there, and we'll keep going. The slides are up there so I don't get too far off into outer space, and I promise I'll bounce right back, and we'll keep going. All right, so stay in your lane. What happens when we don't stay in our lane? Well, first off, sometimes I get a little brick wallish and throw brick walls up when people come at me a little aggressively, like, who the heck's going to tell me to stay in my lane? You stay in your lane, right? That's kind of the first thing that comes to me when I hear stay in your lane. Because it's a little forward, right? It's not necessarily that warm and fuzzy and that great, but the reality is that that's where that big ears and that big eyes come back. We've got to make sure we tear the wall down and take a fresh look at where we are and understand what staying in our lane means versus trying to push it back onto the other person. Well, when we don't stay in our lane, we have a lack of focus. So we have, and I'll use the negative versions of them, the supervisor, the managers, the bosses that run around and put fires out all day, right? We've got the people that throw the weight of the world on their shoulders, type A personalities, nobody does it better than them. And man, they do a really good job of running around looking extremely busy all day long and saving the company from its demise and crashing and burning into the ocean, right? But while we are so focused on putting out fires and doing all those other particular items and all those other things, we have no focus for our company. There's a lack of focus. Our company doesn't know where it's going, doesn't know where it's been. It's just surviving minute to minute and day to day. We have traffic jams. Does everybody know why you have traffic? So rush hour traffic. Does anybody know why you have rush hour traffic? It's right up there. Because we don't stay in our lanes. Because the lane to the left of us always looks faster, and we need to scoot over into that lane to see if we can't get past two cars and then scoot back into the other one. And literally, statistically, that is why. If everybody got on the roads are available. The reason you get onto a road, the reason why you have exit ramps and on-ramps and all those different type of items is so that you get into a lane and you stay there. You maybe move once. The reason traffic jams exist and the reason traffic occurs is because everybody is more important than everybody else, and I got to get there first, and let me finagle in and out of these weaves and go from there. It's why we create traffic jams. There is no difference inside of our companies. If we don't stay in our lane, do the things that we are supposed to be providing, focusing on our portion of this process, we're creating traffic jams. All the rest of the people inside of your company are slowed down, are stuck in traffic because you're weaving in and out of it, or maybe you have multiple people weaving in and out of their lanes and slowing down your progress. Multitasking. Multitasking is an interesting one because we've created an environment where people put it on their resumes. I'm great at multitasking. We make it this badge of honor that we wear around, and it's like, I can pat my head and eat my dinner and check my emails all at the same time. My question to you is why? Why do you want to do that? Why have we created an environment, created a society where we allow multitasking to be cool, to be a badge of honor, to be something that we stand on and that we love to do? When people put, I'm great at multitasking on a resume, I cringe every single time. Because multitasking to me means that I'm gonna look like I'm really busy all the time. And I hate that. I want all my people walking around looking focused, not busy. I want all my people walking around with a sense of dedication and a sense of determination, not like they're literally about to blow a gasket because they are so busy. So we've got to take a look at multitasking. And there's a lot of information out there about multitasking, and that's a whole nother topic for us to talk about. But don't necessarily look at these things as being positives. Multitasking is not allowing you to efficiently focus on one thing at a time. You are giving fractions of your ability to multiple things, and you're unable to accomplish them. When you have tons of work in progress inside of your facility, you're probably multitasking. If you're unable to get customer orders out the door, you're probably multitasking. If you're not hitting ship dates, if you don't have 100% packaged product inside your facility right now, you are multitasking. It's the demise of our companies, it's the demise of our businesses, and it will be the demise of you. Anybody have a question on that? Any multitaskers out there that want to defend themselves? Okay, all right, just check it. I'm ready for you. Last but not least, our companies, they just start to fail. And we might do okay right now, right? Business is really good in the woodworking industry. I'll tell you, when I started in it 9 short years ago, it wasn't doing that well. The only reason we survived was we had a pretty neat little niche product that sat off into the corner, and luckily some of our customers really never had a bottom, so the bottom never fell out on them, and they continued to buy product from us. But man, I remember it was a much different environment, much different temperature when I first came into woodworking. Now everything's roses and butterflies. Everybody's buying stuff, companies are flourishing, they're doing great, right? But just because you have tons of influx of sales and money coming into your company, that doesn't mean it's healthy. It means you're having a great month. That means you've gotten a little motivated for yourself, you started hitting the treadmill, you're starting to feel really good about yourself, but man, you're just waiting to hit that cheeseburger one day real soon. So you've got to understand, we got to start to stay in our lanes because it's not about how well we're doing right now. It's about making sure we make every ounce of profit we can right now in the greatest way we possibly can right now, and we set ourselves up for success during those down years, during the down tick, so that we survive them. Yes, sir.
Guy, I want to go back to the multitasking thing that you were just talking about.
Okay.
I apologize.
No problem.
Sitting in my office and I'm working on a bid, the big project that's due at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. And get a text message from my installers.
Mm-hmm.
It says, we're starting to put the cabinets in Mrs. Jones's house. Can you hear me? So I'll start from the beginning.
So it's 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting in my office, I'm working on a big bid, it's due at 2 o'clock this afternoon. And I get a text from one of my installers that says, we're starting to put the cabinets in at Mrs. Jones's house. She thinks we're in the wrong room and the cabinets are the wrong color. And right as I'm starting to figure out how I'm going to deal with this text message and I'm scrambling to look at some drawings, Jerry walks in from the shop floor and says, either the edge bander's broken or we got the wrong color edge banding and I don't know what to do. How do I get around multitasking in that situation?
Okay, so just so I'm clear, you're talking about wanting to do a quote, an edge bander that exploded, and a customer's order potentially not being correct, all crashing down at you at the same time.
And they're all the most important thing I have to do right now.
Right. So one of them isn't. And that's where you have to decide. That's where the call comes in, because are you going to give 30% of your effort to a quote? Because how well do you think that quote's going to do for you? Are you going to cross every T, dot every I, make sure you're as competitive as you can possibly be, and get that off to a future customer? So although you might appease the situation right now, you're ultimately going to set yourself up for failure down the road. The reason why you are in this situation right now is because we multitask. We multitask because, maybe we're not doing things properly, so we're running our manufacturing plants and our edge banders specifically in this case at 1,000 miles an hour every single day because we have bad processes and we never give ourselves time to PM and actually make sure we have a well-running machine. We have our people out there in the field running with things because we have a bad process back at our facility that doesn't confirm and make absolutely sure before that thing leaves the building that it's the right color and that it's going on properly. And those things are happening because you're constantly getting tangled up into those items, so you might put the wrong color on a quote going out to a customer, or even something worse, maybe the final shop drawing. And maybe now your customer is multitasking as well, so they don't catch that you put the wrong color on there, so they sign off on it, it comes back, you've got it installed, and now you're getting that phone call again. That's why it happens. So we have to take care of where we're at right now, right? Which are those three absolute problems going on. And you have to do the hard thing, and you have to decide what is the most important thing right now. Well, the edge bander's not going to go anywhere, right? I can probably get a little bit of a buffer zone from a potential future customer if I say, hey, I apologize, but I need another 12 hours. I'm going to get this to you. Please sit tight. That customer and those people that are in the field that you're literally hemorrhaging money on, that has to be your ultimate priority. You go in there, you get that knocked out, you get that taken care of, and then you hop on to the next one and you go from there. By doing so, you are going to actually solve those problems versus delaying the next inevitable situation that's going to put you into a multitasking scenario. Does that make sense? You were good.
It does, thank you.
Okay. And thank you for the question. Thank you for breaking the ice. So does that make sense to everybody else? It's not easy. I didn't say, this is, we're talking, we're inside this beautiful amphitheater, and we're doing all these things, but it isn't roses and butterflies. It requires you to have some grit. It requires you to have some guts. It requires you to make some hard choices. But the bottom line is you can't work on all three things simultaneously. Scientists and Harvard and all these other places have physically shown it is an impossibility to do so. And you've got to be able to just be able to make the critical decision and work on there. Now, when we talk about staying in our lane, that's the decision that you should be making. That's how we stay in our lane. When somebody comes to me and I've got 6 people flying at me, asking me something to do, I stay in my lane and I make the hard choice of this is most important. But when I try to appease everyone and everything, all I'm doing is continuing to stick the Band-Aids. The ship is still sinking, it's still going down. I might have some people that are upset that they didn't get picked first, whatever the case may be, but ultimately everybody's going to get squared away. Everybody's going to get the attention that they deserve, every task, every person, everything. All right, so we talked a little bit about what happens when we don't stay in our lane and all the negatives that can impact us from that. But what do we start to do in order to get ourselves to start staying in our lane and then ultimately become better leaders, right? Well, in order to become a better leader, you have to understand who it is that you're leading. Am I leading a bunch of 3rd graders to the zoo, for a field trip? Or am I leading professionals in a company that's multi-million dollars and we have huge goals and objectives that we're trying to do, right? You have to kind of know your audience. And ultimately, the really cool part about being in this lane is that you get to pick your audience in this particular case. You've got a lot of power when it comes to that portion of it. If you are in a management position, if you are an owner of a company, if you are a CEO, whatever the case may be, you have the ability to choose the people that you want to put and provide and put the effort into to lead, right? It's not a get-out-of-jail-free card, though. I will tell you, that's my one biggest pet peeve about the civilian environment versus the military environment, and one of the things that I learned most quickly. In the military, you're stuck with what you got. They better be as good as they can possibly be to be corny and do all those type of things, because that is it. They're not going anywhere. You are stuck with those 4 people that they ask you, hey, lead these guys into the promised land. Or you're stuck with that platoon of people to lead them into the promised land. And it's pretty a severe situation, because in Iraq, that's life or death, right? For me, it was life or death. So just because I didn't like a guy or his personality or his attitude and would rather pull my get-out-of-jail-free card and fire them and never have to look at them again, you're stuck with them. But I'll tell you, once I got over that, stopped whining and complaining about it, got the big ears and the big eyes about it, you understand that, man, I got to look in the mirror and I have to become so much better. Because in order for me to become so much better, that person's going to become better, we all become better, and heck, maybe we come home, right? Pretty extreme scenario. But why not utilize that mentality in our civilian environments? Before we're so quick to pull the trigger and get rid of somebody and knock them out or take them out or blame it on them, take a look in the mirror. Have I done everything I possibly can in order to help this person out? Have I done everything I possibly can in order to make sure I'm being the best leader I possibly can be in order for them to become better, right? Because I'll tell you, it's difficult hiring and firing people and over and over and over and over and over again. It's exhausting. Not only is it exhausting for you, it's exhausting for the rest of your staff. Because while you're over there multitasking on a bunch of other items, the rest of your people are the ones picking up the slack and trying to train this new person again for the umpteenth time, right? So we got to look at our staff. Our staff is everything. Obviously, first part of building the right team, right? We look at good to greats, right people on the bus. We like to take it a little bit further than that. We like to say the right people on the bus, but also the right people in the right seat on the bus. Make sure that everybody inside of our facility, we know we want them to be there. Now, where do they want to be? Where do they fit best with inside of our company? And then we try to make sure that they're sitting in the right seat, not just for us, but for them. Here's a real big one, and it's cutting out the negative impact. And this is another one of those difficult ones for people to do, but it will have the absolute most positive impact on your company. I've been to so many facilities. Gosh, I've toured 1,000 manufacturing plants from all different industries at this point, from Japan to Germany to the Bible Belt in the United States. I've literally been to all of them. And the one thing I see repeatedly in many different scenarios when I actually get an opportunity to sit there and speak with the people inside the company is everybody kind of resonates on a particular type of person. It's that negative impact. Life would be great if so-and-so had a better attitude. Life would be great if this person would open up and be more a part of the team. For some reason, there always seems to be at least one negative impact in a company that isn't running as well as it should be. And that negative impact is tearing you apart from the inside. It is a legitimate cancer. But for some reason, that person has wedged themselves into a particular scenario where they hold magic fairy dust in the back of their pocket, and we never get rid of them because, oh my gosh, but they do, nobody else can do. For me, it's a CNC operator. I'll never forget my CNC operator. Bucey pot and rail system. I don't know, gosh, maybe 18, 20 people at the time, something like that. Always busy, always running around, chicken with their heads cut off, that whole type of scenario. And the CNC operator, he was just a jerk. And everybody else, whenever they had to impact or they had to work with him, you could just tell the soul had been sucked out of their body. I mean, it was a very devastating, crazy thing, right? But we couldn't get rid of him because who was going to run the Bucelato? Nobody knew how to run the Bucelato. Oh my gosh, he knows all these tricks and these little widgets and these gadgets and all these type of things. And finally, one day I got so fed up, I just said, I can't take anymore. I'd rather we shut the doors on the place than have to see the rest of my people constantly going through this effort and these issues. And we got rid of them. It took about 48 hours, and we were running about 3 times better. How long we think something is going to take to bounce back, in reality, takes a fraction of the time. The 2 people in your particular scenario that we have to say no to, we think are going to be devastated forever. The reality is they'll be devastated for like an hour, and then they'll get to it, and they'll figure it out, and we'll all figure it out, and we'll keep moving forward, and we'll be better for it. We've just got to get over the fear. We got to, get to the side of the cliff, and we got to jump. We've got to just make the leap forward. And the second you do, number one, you're going to find out that person probably has a ton of skeletons in their closet. The things that they were doing to make you think that they had magic fairy dust were actually very negative things that they were doing to slow you down, and just perceive that. I remember that person specifically would turn the machine down as slow as he could so that he could run less parts and it would take longer throughout the day, so he just had something there to do and push a button. We never knew that. So just literally by getting rid of that person, the simplest thing we found was like, well, our machine runs faster. And obviously being faster means more efficiency, right? So you got to make sure you're releasing the negative impact. The harder one is looking at yourself and making sure you aren't the negative impact on your company, and to turn those things around. Yes, sir.
This was personal to you. It was your guy.
Yep.
How did you decide that you couldn't be better to make him better?
Okay, great. Yeah, so we talked about make sure you're looking in the mirror first before you pull the get out of jail free card and fire somebody, right? So there isn't a very clear-cut answer to that. It's a gray area, right? This for me was 7, 8 years ago now. Today, could I have made it work versus me 7 or 8 years ago? Maybe. I'm a much better leader today than I was 7 or 8 years ago. I know that my frustration level would flip just on a dime 8 years ago, where today I'm much more calm, cool, and collected then. So sure, I definitely played a role in it. But where I draw the line is when you start to impact the rest of the people inside of our companies. So if it's just you, but you're not necessarily creating an impact for anybody else, then maybe I need to focus on myself a little bit more and see if I can't get you to start engaging and being a part of this community, right? But the second you start to impact, the second you start to infiltrate the rest of our community, the rest of our people, that, I don't have the luxury of continuing to improve myself in order to make sure everybody else is taken care of. You got to make the hard call. Just don't always fall back on that. 7 or 8 years down the road, make sure you're continuing to still learn, to still become a better leader, to still do the things that you can do. But sure, you're going to have to make tough decisions at the time to the best of your ability, learn from them, and move on. Make sense? Cool. Thank you for the question. So personalities that are going to succeed. We want to focus on the personalities that are going to succeed. In upstate New York, there's maybe 5 of us that even know what a pot and rail system is. I mean, we have nobody in the area. A few cabinet shops, different things like that, table saws, obviously. But as far as finding people with an applicable skill set to our company and our panel processing facility, which you guys have seen now, is like finding a unicorn in the haystack. I think I've interviewed 4 people ever in 3,500 interviews that actually had run one of our machines before. So you've got to start looking at different ways of, hey, how do I get the people in? Because we all deal with the struggles of it. I've dealt with the struggles of it. It's hard to find good people, hard to find people that work. I did a news article with our local news people 5 years ago talking about, hey, everybody's saying they're looking for jobs. I got 25 seats I need to fill, and I can't find a person that doesn't come in that doesn't smell like they've got booze on their breath. Like, what the heck's going on around here, right? So we're always in the struggle of trying to find good people and build up our work base on top of making sure that they're there and they're providing value and we're not just creating more overhead, right? So how do we do that without finding those unicorns that are out there? because the reality is you'll be looking for the rest of your life. They don't exist. Well, we've got to start looking at the type of attitudes that people have in order to succeed. For us, that attitude is a good attitude and good aptitude. Those are the things that we look for. If you're a highly motivated senior in high school that comes in and you're about to graduate that summer and you're looking for your first job and you were just enthusiastic and ready to go, I don't care that you don't have any life experience or job experience. Your excitement excites me, and we're going to put the time, we're going to put the energy in order to make you a valuable part of our team. I'm also going to go in there with the risk of knowing that this guy or gal is just coming out of high school, and we might lose him. This might be a stepping stone for him. That's okay, because that stepping stone, and this has happened to me multiple times now, that stepping stone eventually and sometimes leads back to you. They remembered how great of an opportunity and how great of an experience they had at your company. They went out there, spread their wings a little bit, found out that the rest of the world is cold, dark, and miserable, and wanted to come back because we had such a great environment. I'm serious, it's really neat. We've had people from high school come in, work for us over the summer, go to college, get a college degree, and now sitting inside of our facility as engineers. We basically planted the seed. They went to school, got their education so that they could come back and work for us. I mean, those are the type of things that you can get to when you're focused on your people and you're focused on leadership. You're focused on staying in your lane. But if we're fighting fires and we're worried about jumping into everybody else's lane and doing what they're supposed to do, then we're not looking at the big picture. We're not even creating an environment to allow us to have that circle or that full loop. So we've got to start right from the beginning, and that's personalities. Good attitude, good aptitude. So we talk about staying in our lanes. I'll talk about micromanagement and different things like that in a bit. And here's one where I still have not grown past yet, and that's interviewing. We have 95 people in our facility. 70 of those people are outside in our manufacturing plant. We've got CFOs and project managers and 4 engineers and a marketing department and a sales department and accounting department and all those things that we manage. I still interview the high school kid who's going to come in and work in our pallet cell. Because, man, I am so fearful of letting anybody inside of my facility that is not going to be positive for everybody else. That's how much that negative impact is important to me. I do 25 interviews a week. Just burn and turn. My HR person, she loses her mind. Because she's like, don't you want to slow down? Absolutely not. When I get done speaking, I go back in, video conference with somebody for an interview. Because we want to keep those things going. And we have to. You've got to be the gatekeeper for your area. Your department, your company, whatever it might be, wherever you are within your area, you've got to be the gatekeeper for that. You've got to protect everybody else inside of that. Now, the reality is, in my growth pattern, what I need to do is get other people inside of my facility, like my plant manager, like my production manager, and get them up to speed to the level where they can provide the same amount of value interviewing as I can. And, my excuse or whatever we want to call it, but that's the next projection for me. And I know that that needs to happen, but at the same time, I want to solidify and let everybody know it is so important who you let in and who you let out. Don't just be like, they got a pulse. Shoot them in. Let's see how they work out. Don't do trial by fire. Don't bring people into your facility and cross your fingers and hope. But with that said, again, a good personality and a good attitude are going to go a long way. An intelligent person with a good attitude will learn anything. We're all intelligent human beings here. Everybody has come here so that they could learn something and do those type of things. If you were taught something, do you not think that you could learn it? Right? I know I could. So why not give somebody else that opportunity? Because I want the enthusiastic kid. I have an employee named Rory who I'll talk to you guys about. Mid-20s, tells us had a rough go at life over and over and over again, and walked in for his interview, dressed up as good as he possibly could, and did his interview. And one of my huge red flags is usually an unreliable source of transportation. And he didn't have one. He didn't have a car at the time, couldn't afford a car, all those type of things. I'm like, how are you going to get to work? And he's like, I'll make it happen. And I flat out told him, I am going to go against what I usually do and give you a job because you seem so highly motivated right now. The second I see that leave your eyes, you have to leave our facility because that is the only reason why you're here. Just bought his first home. I think he has 2 cars now. And he's worked at Inova and literally has a functional, prosperous life because he's just motivated and we gave him a chance. That to me is the coolest thing on the planet. I remember when he first started, it was about 4 or 5 weeks in, he had a flat tire on his bicycle that he was riding into work, pulled over to the side of the road, realized he wasn't gonna have enough time to change the tire and still make it in, ditched the bike, and one of our finishing supervisors saw him running to the factory as he was driving in and picked him up. I will give that guy the world. Those are the type of people that you're looking for. He'd never seen a piece of particle board in a 4x8 sheet before he came into our facility. But his attitude was everything. Any questions on staff?
Just curious, talk about good attitude. What about when you find somebody who's in a different...
Wait a second, we'll get you a mic. Please.
Sorry, I won't let it happen again. I've learned.
All right, is it on? What I was saying is, you talk about good attitude. What happens when you find somebody who's in a different career path, wants to come into something, so is already kind of higher on the wage scale, has a really good attitude? Normally, I'd start somebody like that, lower. How
Sure.
do you deal with something like that?
Right, so we're talking about, I'm assuming pay is a portion of that, right? Because we're gonna have a pay cut, those type of items. So that's where it's gotta work for both of you. I've had plenty of people who, love their jobs or didn't love their jobs, were making, great money. A great example for me is there's plenty of people that own their own cabinetry or handyman type of shop, right? I get tons of handyman type of people, that come into our facility and they basically come in and they just flat out like, hey, business is doing really good. I'm really busy, but I hate doing the accounting aspect of it. I don't want to have to wake up and seal the deal on another sale, those type of things. I got into this because I'm good with my hands. I know how to use my hands. I know how to build things, and I'm really good at that stuff. I thought the business side of it would be cool, but I'm stressed out, right? You have to understand what you can provide for them other than just monetary value, right? And I'm flat out. The first thing I will ask in an interview, just because obviously doing so many, I gotta make sure I'm getting pretty good at it, right? But if there's somebody who ever comes in a situation where I question that we might not be able to pay them enough, it's the first thing I ask. I just get it out of the way. How much do you need to make? Because everybody has, I couldn't go in and start working a minimum wage job anymore, right? I mean, if that was the only thing, obviously you'd have to, but the reality is I've built my life to a portion where a minimum wage job just is not gonna cut it, right? So everybody has that scenario. So you just have to find out their scenario. What is what you can get into? And you let them say it first because they might be strapped and they just need to make it through the next week. And you don't know that, and they will, and they just need to get whatever dime they can possibly get because you have no idea what's going on. You've got to let them answer that, and they'll be like, oh, well, I need to be within this range. Either that range is like on Mars for you, or it's back here on planet Earth, and you can facilitate that. If it's on Mars and you're not going to be able to work it out, it's a no-go. Pay is everything. Everything else we talk about is a fundamental, secondary pretense to people being paid what they need to get paid in order to live and survive, right? A comfortable wage. And if it's just not gonna work, then it's not gonna work. Make sense?
You'll pass on somebody.
I will, yeah. Yep, but if we're close, hey, I realize you might be making X amount of dollars in your business right now, but hey, I can provide you with just doing the thing that you enjoy to do, and obviously we take care of the rest. You come in, you work 40 hours a week, collect a paycheck, have no stress when you go home. That is worth its weight in gold to a ton of people. Sounds great to me. Right? So yeah. So the reality is that, you got to find the workout and happy medium on it. Great question, thank you. Yes. Oh, yes. Microphone.
Hi. How do you take into account when you're looking at people I guess, different perspectives, which I guess could be generational or cultural, or how do you like find that attitude for success, but also maybe someone who is a divergent thinker
Sure.
from, you know, your culture, but will add to it, if that makes sense.
It does. So you're talking about somebody who doesn't necessarily fit the cookie cutter mold of, you know, I'll keep using our example here, the cabinet maker and manufacturer person. I love those people. We have the most eclectic group of human beings you'll ever find inside of a facility. Like, people walk in and they're like, where do you get all these people from? I'm like, everywhere. Everywhere. Like, we love it. I love the fact. So obviously, women on the manufacturing floor, especially in upstate New York, are not a big ticket item. There's very few. The demographic is much smaller percentage-wise for women on the factory floor than it is for men on the factory floor, right? If you're a woman and you come inside of our facility and you have a good attitude, you're basically good to go. And the reason for that is exactly your question. Because I want to break it up. If we all fit the same mold, we all think the same way, you know, the yes man mentality type of thing, we'll never improve. The other thing that's really neat about it and the differences and those type of things is I don't want the 20-year-old kid who just can literally come in and beat the crap out of himself every day, work his butt off, and go home and do it. I want the 60-year-old person that's got a few bangs and bruises and knees don't necessarily work as great as they used to and can't work at that same pace because they're going to find better ways to do things. They're going to find easier, simpler ways to do projects and do items. Whereas, you know, when you're a kid, you just kind of hammer through everything. So they're not necessarily helping the process. They've just got the physical ability to do it. I want the people with impairments because they're going to come up with unique situations to solve their problems because they've had to their whole lives, right? So an eclectic group of people and getting outside of what your cookie cutter version of your employee looks like is a very powerful thing to do. You have to have, you know, which we're going to get into next, is a really good training program and those type of things, but that is a very, very positive thing. Thank you for the question. Cool. All right, so what type of leader are you? We've taken a look at our staff and taken some stock in our staff and looked about who we want to bring into our facility. Now we get an opportunity to look at ourselves here a little bit. Are you the type of leader that stays in your lane? Or are you the type of leader that we've talked about so far today, right? One that kind of rocks around, creates traffic jams, puts out fires, multitasks, does all those type of things. Are you being a servant for your staff and your companies? Man, it's a big ticket item. The reason why I don't use boss, the reason why I don't use manager, the reason why I don't use supervisor is because I am a servant to my company. I provide one value for my company, and that is to make sure everybody else has exactly what they need in order to perform their jobs. The utopic scenario for me inside a manufacturing plant is that unless you are physically touching product and manipulating product, you don't exist. And it's a pretty hard thing to get over initially, right? I wish we didn't have to have marketing. I wish we didn't have to have sales. I wish I didn't have to have a forklift operator who ran around. I wish I didn't need a person who counted screws all day. I wish I didn't need to have an HR person and accounting and all those different types of things. You know, we're a necessary evil right now, but the reality is we're not providing any value to our product. We're sure as heck not providing any value to our customers. Our customers pay us, they pay me to make sure that I get a product to them as efficiently with the highest amount of quality at the cheapest price I can possibly get it them into. Bottom line. All the rest of this stuff that goes around in order to make that happen is just out there. And once we get that chip off of our shoulder, once we take the magic fairy dust out of our pocket, and once we realize that we're just servants to those people that are literally working the lines, the people that are pressing the buttons on our panel saws, on our edge banders, on our CNCs, the people that are holding the spray guns and putting paint down on boards, the people that are assembling those items together, those are the people that make the magic happen. I am just a servant to them. I want to make sure that every single obstacle possible gets the heck out of their way so they can do their job to the best of their ability and be rewarded for it. So how do we do that? Well, we show our backs. What I mean by showing your back is not feeling like you're too cool when that edge bander breaks down to get out there, roll your sleeves up, and get in the fight with them. Or when your supervisor or finishing manager or whoever comes in and says, hey, we're having a weird issue with the flow of some of our parts going through these particular processes, that you don't turn that into a board meeting and create a bunch of graphs and spreadsheets and all that stuff, and you get your butt out there and you actually look at the problem at the source. You show your back. Sometimes we get so used to looking at graphs and P&L statements and doing all those type of things and marketing trends and all that, we forget that we have legs and that we can actually move outside of our offices into the factory and show our backs. So when you look at what type of leader you are, basically, are you a boss or are you a servant leader? Servant leaders are going to have armies behind them of people that are willing to back them up when the times get tough too. A boss is going to have a bunch of people head for the door when some stuff hits the fan, and you're going to be there with all of it on your shoulders. And then lastly, is being a servant leader a top priority for you? Or is that kind of secondary and you'd rather just do something else? And it might be. But if it's not a top priority for you, then you sure as heck need to get somebody in there who it is a top priority for. And I say that because that's the beautiful relationship that I have with the founder of our company. He's a mad scientist. He was a set designer, did things for Coca-Cola and Pepsi and Apple and you name it, and he's a Broadway show guy. He's the most magical, kind of theatrical person I know. But man, when you talk about trying to run a manufacturing plant, he is not good at it. But what's really neat about it is he's humble enough to understand that he isn't good at it. He got the heck out of the way, and he allowed me to do what I needed to do. He stays in his lane, I stay in my lane. And with that, we have a beautiful relationship that creates some pretty cool, pretty neat stuff. So leaders empower their staff. In order for us to get away, you have a question? Yeah. Mike.
Servant leadership. How do you deal with servant leadership and not get stuck multitasking and not actually staying in your lane? I try to servant leadership and I end up not doing the bigger picture project because I'd actually rather servant leader and be on the shop floor than in my office.
Okay. Sure. So, sorry. Okay. Yeah, so to be a servant leader, and honestly, it's a prelude to going directly into our slide. Just because you're being a servant leader does not mean that you need to be the easy target. And the easy target's what I call it, and I think it's a part of this one, right? Somewhere in there? Sure. Be the easy target. Just because I'm a servant leader doesn't mean like every time somebody comes in and asks me the same question 9 times that I answer it like, oh my gosh, let me just answer this for you. I'm going to ask myself, why the heck are you asking me this question 9 times? Because the reality is when that happens, he's taking me out of my lane. Remember, you'll take yourself out of your lane sometimes, but sometimes people are trying to swerve into your lane and you got to move out of the way too, right? So you have to make sure people aren't moving you out of your lane either. If a person comes in and they ask me a question twice, massive red flag. We're going into a different realm. Like, why the first time when we talked about this, didn't this register in? Didn't we put a good process in place in order for us to make sure that we don't have to waste each other's time again, right? And that's where it's at. So my people know that I am there for them at every single second, but at the same time, I'm going to hold them accountable. And people need to be held accountable for their actions. Because what happens is when we're an easy target, and ultimately when we kind of take things over for people, right? When people know we're going to come in, or we're multitasking, we're firefighting, and it's like, oh, you're doing this wrong, get out of the way, I'm going to do this. Well, they start to take on that role. They're like, I'm not gonna worry about making sure that I'm doing this correctly. They're just going to do it for me anyways, right? So sometimes we're kind of taking that power away from them. Sometimes we're turning ourselves into the multitasker because just how we're handling issues. Does that make sense? Okay. And this honestly will help kind of lead towards that. But yeah, I mean, holding your people accountable, easiest thing you can possibly do. Want to know why it's so easy? Because you hired somebody, right? You're paying them money for them to be inside of your facility. Let's use our CNC operator again for the example. I'm physically cutting you a paycheck every single week for you to be a CNC operator. Here's a mind-blowing idea. How about you do your job? Right? Here's a more mind-blowing idea. How about we get the heck out of their way so they can do their jobs, right? And that's usually what it is. Most people want to do their jobs. Going back to your question a little bit, you know, millennials and those type of things, we've talked about that. The younger generation is pretty neat. I know they drive some of the older generation a little bit crazier because they're not, you know, buying houses right away, and, you know, what they want to do outside of work isn't necessarily what we would have done in the past and those particular type of things. But man, while they're at work, they really care. If you put them in a position and you hold them accountable and you let them do their jobs, they actually give a crap. Like, really care. Like, some people are like, wow, I can't believe you gave me a raise. He's like, I would have worked here for free. And I'm like, okay. But that is literally how it is. It is much more to them about going in and having something that is productive and something that is fulfilling versus working 100 hours a week and grinding it out to make, you know, the utmost amount of money that they possibly can to pay for all their debt. They just look at life differently. But they're a great resource for you because, man, when you give them the opportunity to do what they're supposed to, they care more about it than you do sometimes. I'm like, calm down. It's going to be okay. So remember, you got to hold people accountable. You got to let them do their jobs, the thing that you're paying them for, and they'll just become great people for you. But in order to do that, we've got to actually trust people, and that's where it starts to spiral down for most managers, most people, is we just don't necessarily trust anybody. Because we're paying them all this money, because we have all this overhead, we're like all over everybody, making sure they're doing everything they're supposed to so that we're not wasting a single nickel or a single dime, right? The reality is we're being highly penny wise, dollar foolish, because we're weaving in and out of lanes, creating traffic jams every single place you go, and we're making our processes so inefficient, you've got dollar bills flying out the window while you're trying to pick the penny up off the ground. So trust your people, right? We talked about interviewing. We talked about taking stock on your staff. Now you got to trust them. That's where we look in the mirror, right? Giving everybody the opportunity to fail is really cool. And ultimately, once you've trusted people and you're holding them accountable, they are going to fail. Bottom line. Nobody's perfect. Who here in this room has never failed in their life? That's right. If you haven't, get out. Everybody's going to fail, right? Luckily enough, you know, like being in the position I am now, when I fail, not everybody necessarily gets to see that I fail, and, you know, I can sweep it under the rug if I want to and do that things, but I scream from the rooftops every single time I fail at something. Oh, I screwed this up, I did this wrong, to show that it's okay to fail. What I don't do is just go, oh, I screwed this up, I did this wrong, and then not say how I fixed it. Let your people fail, hold them accountable, and trust them. So when they come back to you and they say, yep, screwed up this program, my engineer comes in, I screwed up this program, we put an extra hole in all these parts, da-da-da-da. Okay, no problem, how'd you fix it? Well, here's the process we put in place. Here's the things that we're doing in order for that to happen, da-da-da-da. Great, thank you so much. Back out there, right? Because people are gonna fail, it happens. Nobody's perfect, everybody's going to. Create an environment, create a facility that allows people to fail, and then give them the opportunity to fix it. So involving staff and decision making. I used to think that a lot of people actually just didn't really care about the bigger ticket items and the bigger picture type items, and that ultimately they wanted to come in, collect a paycheck, and get the heck out of there. So it wasn't necessarily malicious on my end to try to keep information from my people, but at the same time, I wasn't being very open with that as well. And it will surprise you how much people want to know about the place that they are working. And as I've been doing this more and more, I start to understand why people do. It's because they care and they're actually a part of it, and we have good people with good attitudes and good aptitude in there. And really, they want to just be a part of the process. And I like it. I like having more people a part of that process. We have good chains of command. We have good structures set in place. But that doesn't mean that people can't provide their opinion on matters. So allow your people to be a part of the decision process. Allow your people the opportunity to sit down and say, hey, our next 5-year goal, what is it? Ours specifically is to split our company into 2 divisions, large contract and smaller custom orders. As much as I've tried to push one-piece flow through my facility, I can't have an order of 1,000 going through and put 2 beds through it and not sacrifice the efficiency of that 1,000-bed order. But I don't go sit in my ivory tower and bring out my graphs and, by myself all day long and analyze everything and look at everything. I, number one, go to the floor and say, hey, here's the problem. When we produce 2 of these beds, we're not able to produce 20 of those. How the heck do we solve it? And everybody starts to work on it and go through, and now everybody's got an objective and a goal, and they're not just pressing a button and putting their head down all day, and they actually have something to look forward to, a challenge to maybe overcome, and we start to work on those type of things. Boom, 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 and they're a part of the process. But after we've been working on that, which we've been working on it for about 5 years, after we've been working on that, we finally come to the conclusion now that it's not worth putting those 2 beds in and sacrificing those 20. And I get to go to our staff and say, hey, we're going to split the seas here. The next 5 years, we're going to create a separate division of Inova that takes care of this. And I don't have to go through this huge, crazy long board meeting and waste everybody's time, or half the people are falling asleep and all this type of stuff, because we've already been working on it. Everybody already knows. It's just like, roger that. Let us know when it's going to happen. We're ready to go, right? So let them be a part of the decision making. The last part of it is that I don't want the weight of all that decision making on my shoulders. Number one, because people have better ideas than I do. And I would like to utilize the collective of all of us in order to come up with a solution than me needing to be the only one that's able to do it. So in order for us to do all those things, we come to the hardest part, and that's releasing the control. The micromanager. Dun, 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 dun. The micromanager and the multitasker rode down the road together and smashed into everybody else. We've got to release the control. We have to. I'm a massively type A personality. I was a huge micromanager when I first started in my Marine Corps career, and it definitely bled over into my woodworking career a bit when we first started as well. But man, micromanaging is an exhausting task to put in front of yourself. It truly is. You've got to relinquish some of that control. You've got to give it back to those people that you're paying all that money to, and you've got to let them be a part of the process. Otherwise, if you're asking yourself, why am I a 2 to 3 person wood shop? Or why can't I get my company to the next, oh God, what do I do? Are we back? Yes. All right. Why didn't I get my company to the next level or where I wanted to get? Well, you're starting to stunt progress. You need to release some of the control. You might be great and let people do what they need to do and all those type of things, and it's starting to work for you, but eventually you'll plateau. Eventually you get to an area where you got to release a little bit more. For me right now, a very small fraction of that is I continue to interview. I got to let it go. I'm stunting our growth. I'm stunting our employees' growth. I'm stunting our ability for other people inside of our company to grow and succeed and do those things, so we got to start relinquishing some of that control. Any questions on that? We all doing good? Staying awake? All right, last one, I promise. Leaders train their staff, right? So now that we're empowering people, we've taken stock in it, we're becoming better leaders. Well, how do we start to grow now? How do we start to get into that better area? Well, we start to train our people. But when we're training people, we have to focus on the process, not the person. Focus on the process, not the person. Focus on the process, not the person. Literally, if you don't walk out of here with anything else today, walk out of here with that just screaming through your brains. The people are not the problem, the process is. When somebody comes up to you and says, I cut this board to the wrong length, you fool, how did you do that, right? It has nothing to do with the person. All right, well, let's look at how we cut it to the wrong length. Well, I grabbed this and I looked at that and I set it down, but this wasn't here, and then I went down. Okay, well, why don't we put a stop in place so that it prevents you, makes it mistake-proof from you being able to actually cut it to the wrong length. There's so many things that you can do in order to make processes better. In the lean world, we call it poke-yoke. mistake-proof things so that that conversation just doesn't need to be had. But instead, we have a tendency to always want to focus on people and say, oh gosh, I can't believe you did that, you're fired. And then the next one comes in, oh gosh, can't believe you did that, you're fired. And then the next one comes in, oh gosh, can't believe you did that, you're fired. And we just continue to go down this rabbit hole over and over and over again because we're not looking at the process. We've got to look at the processes, stop focusing on the people. Yes, sir.
Are all your processes documented? I tried to talk loud.
Are
Are
you
all
coming
your
at me?
processes documented?
Yes. Well, I would like for all of them to be documented.
Or what percentage?
The unfortunate part is we're creating new processes every day. We create new lines every day. I would say 90% of our processes are documented. We call them standardized. How are they documented? You name it. Whatever is easiest and stops it from being an excuse for people to make mistakes, right? So, I mean, we have videos that we do. So our cleaning assignments in our facility, we have videos of how to clean those things, especially for new people when we're going through our training. We want them to be able to see videos. Some of our areas, we have it set up in just a step, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with like, nice little pictures next to it. Some of them, it's right on the dang table. So like, you don't even have a picture in the back. You just got a table right there. And I mean, it just intuitively, it's one of the coolest things you'll ever see. One of our guys came up with it, and it's like so awesome. And I'm not out there as much anymore, but obviously, I started woodworking. That's how I got into this. So every once in a while, they'll be like, "Guy, you've got to come out. You've got to look at this, da da da." And I get out there, and they'll be like, "Just do it, just do it." And I literally was like, "Okay, and bam, you're done." And literally, mistake-proof it. Because if anybody was going to make a mistake, it'd be me. I've never even seen it before, right? So it's really cool in that way. So we standardize everything, create processes for everything. And then the one thing that tends to blow some people's minds is we give everybody an hour every single morning in order to do those things. So when we talk about empowering our staff and the training and all that, what we're doing is from 7 to 8 o'clock, everybody in our facility doesn't work on a single production item. If they do, I throw ninja stars at them. They're not allowed to touch a single product. It's hilarious when you have, me telling everybody, don't work on product. And I have like one of my team leaders out there like, oh my God, I need to get this done. I've got to get it done. And it's really funny because we've got to create good processes. We have to create good improvements. Those improvements allow us to do what we need to do. Great questions. Yep.
On that specifically, so an hour a day, 22 people, right?
90 people, 93.
So your office staff does the same?
Everybody.
Everybody does the same. There's not a lot of water cooler talk going on while that's happening? I mean, like, what are they, and
This is good. I love
and I'm
this.
guessing you never, because we do it
Sure.
to some degree,
Yep.
but ours is 20 to 30 minutes.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, they sweep and clean and do the routine stuff.
Sure.
But an hour, I can't imagine them actually figuring out that they have something to do. I would
okay.
love it, but
No,
they don't use the time well.
100%. Here's why, or here's potentially why. How often are you training on new ways to improve? Because granted, everybody hits a level and everybody hits a plateau, and I will tell you, it is not an easy challenge to challenge everybody to improve for an hour a day. I wholeheartedly agree with your question and your statement. But now we've got to ask why. Why is it difficult? I could physically take all day and improve all day long every single day. But I've been able to go to manufacturing plants all over the world. I continuously read and learn and come up with new ways and constantly engulfing myself in an improvement type of world and doing those type of items, right? So I've educated myself fairly well on being able to continuously improve my improvements, right? If people are getting stunted out inside of your facility, your training needs to increase because we've got to open up the door so that they actually understand that there is more out there, because in their minds, literally sweeping might be the only thing that they know how to do. Listen, I made my bed as a kid, right? I'm pretty sure not everybody in here made their beds as a kid, right? What I consider clean and organized versus what somebody else considers clean and organized is going to be highly different. I had staff sergeants coming in my room with white gloves on, sweeping things and finding crevices and cracks and corners and all those type of things, little dust bunnies everywhere, right? So my training level in order to be clean and organized is up here. I've got kids who literally just left their parents' house and their parents probably did everything for them. Their level of organizing, their level of improvement is going to be drastically lower than where I'm at, right? I have to make sure I'm providing the training opportunities and the ability for them to learn.
Do you do that training during that hour?
So we actually do an hour and a half every morning. I just don't like people to fall out of chairs. So after that hour, we do a morning meeting every day, 30-minute morning meeting every day. And that morning meeting is led by different people. And this is, it's actually a pretty cool thing because it's starting to take off on a bunch of different companies and stuff like that. It's very cool in the lean community. To go off on a small tangent, 4 or 5 years ago, lean, we were like the weird kids in the corner. And now you come to conferences and you actually see it as a part of the speaking curriculums. And you're like, yes, we're not the weirdos anymore. So it's pretty cool. So we give an hour to improvement every single day, and then we do a 30-minute morning meeting every single day. In that morning meeting, we go over our dashboard. We talk about our sales for the week, what we've upped and down in production, what's going on in each department, and not just finishing department, sub-assembly department, what's going on in our sales department, what's going on in our accounting department. Everybody knows everything about our company. Everybody knows everybody's working in our company. And then share the numbers. Totals, yes. Yep, yeah, why not? They can go on Wayfair and look to see how much our bed costs. And then it's really going crazy because now that Wayfair bed, trust me, is marked up. We're not making anywhere near that amount of money, right? But then they go on there and they're like, well, I made 1,000 beds last week times this number. Holy cow, look how much money. And it's like, I'd rather them actually know the truth than some crazy inflated thing that everybody, comes up with. And in that 30 minutes, we do a lesson of the day. We do a part of the day. We go through all that stuff. So we're literally learning every single day. And during those times, I've worked on not needing to speak at every single morning meeting because I drive my people crazy. But the reality is when there's something big for us to talk about, I've got my platform right there. I don't have to cancel this. I don't have to multitask this. I don't have to do that. I've got my 30 minutes right there, and I utilize them. Answer your question? So I do two things. Yeah, right. That's the difficult part. The other side of it too, and again, I never usually like to lean towards this portion of it because I think it's the get out of jail free card. If you haven't taken stock in your staff, you can lead horses to water, but not necessarily drink, right? So you got to make sure you got the right people in there. Our people are highly motivated. If they start to teeter off a little bit, that's because I'm doing something wrong. We're not training enough or doing one of those things. Cool? Thank you. Great questions. Do we have another question? Comment, yes.
There was a discussion about documenting processes, and I know that a company I worked for in the past worked really hard at documenting processes. And one of the things that we struggled with was getting team leads to understand that those documented processes weren't a reason to or an opportunity to point out that someone did something wrong. Like you said, giving people the opportunity to make mistakes or an opportunity to fail. So what we tried to impress on our team leaders was that, when someone screwed something up, if someone cut 100 parts wrong and then hid 50 of them and then tried to throw the other 50 in the dumpster, it was obviously going to come back when we ran out of material.
And you're just going to do it again. So that 100 parts turns into 300 parts.
That's right. So you need to fix the problem and make people understand that, we can't allow this to happen again, and here's the process we're going to put in place to try and prevent it. Oh, and by the way, we do have this documented. Not rush over there with your documentation, see you screwed this up yet again, because that's not how we tried to teach our team leaders to lead. It's always easy to point the finger and blame someone for a mistake. It's much more difficult to give them the ability to make that mistake and learn and grow from it.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, getting decent on time here. We talked about not being the easy target through the question before, which I really appreciate. And we got to understand, and it goes kind of the question that we had over there, the burden falls on you. You've got to train your staff. You have to make sure that your staff's being trained. And ultimately, you have to make sure that you're continuously learning and you're continuously training. I don't come to these things totally out of the goodness of my heart. I come to them because I get to meet my peers. I get to meet other people in our industry. I constantly am getting to see new things. I always go into everything with big eyes and big ears, and I learn as much as I possibly can because everything I learn here, I'm going right back there, and I'm injecting it into my facility. And they love it. It's like I get to bring all of them with me in a little piece, and then every morning I get to go back, or on Monday morning when I go back, I'll get to share all of them this experience. And it's really great. So you got to make sure you're never learning or never stopping to learn and never stop learning. And you have to make sure that you understand the burden falls on you.
Guy,
Yep.
top 3 books that you would recommend?
I'm going to have a list of, sorry, right there. I'm going to have a list of books at the end. Yeah,
Great.
absolutely. And then the last thing is focus on your new people. Your new people are unicorns. Don't throw them to the wolves. The reason why they're unicorns, it doesn't matter how great or how terrible your facility is, it's still your facility. You guys still have your box that you are inside of. Inova has its box. A new person coming inside of that box or a new person coming inside of our facility is outside of that box. They come into things, they see things in a fresh light where we've been doing it over and over again, and they get to inject new ideas into our facility. So make sure your newest people aren't, number one, getting fed to the wolves. They have good training programs in place. And ultimately, you're utilizing their fresh set of eyes in order for you to continuously improve and kind of get you outside the box a little bit. So continuous improvement. Number one way to empower your employees, absolutely. Giving them the opportunity to improve. That's where that 1 hour every single morning comes in. That's where that 30-minute morning meeting, making sure that they do the morning meeting. A different person leads it every day. Number one way to empower people, get your company to start seeing results and start improving. Stops management and engineers from the top-down type of scenario where it's just you or one of your engineers constantly coming out and telling everybody, hey, do this or do that or something like that. Everybody's involved in that process. Everybody is getting the opportunity to be a part of the process and create improvements. Processes, individualized, and educational improvements. So what I mean by that is we want to focus on the process, not the person, but we also want to create improvements on how we educate our staff. We also want to create improvements on how we benefit and reward our staff. So we don't like to have monetary investments inside of Inova. We like things to come intrinsically to people, right? We want you to be motivated to be at Inova because you want to be there, not because you're going to get this fat bonus at the end of the year and that's all you ever work towards. We reward our people, absolutely, but they don't necessarily depend on it. And that is the difference. So make sure you're coming up with new ways to improve the different areas and different aspects that are in there. And then obviously give time towards it often, right? So I know that most people are not going to be able to swallow that bullet and do an hour and a half every single day, but block out some time for it once a week. Give yourself an hour once a week and never waver from it. Never waver from it. We've had trucks physically sitting in the back of our facility before during improvement hours, and we will not compromise. Not because I'm just trying to be hard or whatever the case is, but if I compromised, I'm showing to them that it's really not that important. That, this is neat and cool when it's comfortable for us, but ultimately when the truck's in the back door, I really don't care. Get that stuff out the door, let's go, right? It shows me where my focus is, where my priorities lie. And they know I don't care about the truck at the back door. I care about everybody inside that facility, making sure that they are continuously improving our processes, improving themselves, and making us better, because that truck is always going to be at the back door. It's just the absolute best way for you to be able to create improvement in your facility, grow a better culture, and for you to be able to stay in your lane. Cool. So what happens when we do stay in our lane? Well, our companies have a purpose. They have a purpose because we're not in everyone else's areas. We're not going through everybody else's stuff, and we're actually able to take a step back, cruise on our lane, and make sure that we're creating purpose for our company, giving ourselves objectives, giving ourselves goals, giving ourselves understanding, and making sure that we're cruising down the right way, cruising the right way through the path. Our employees start to flourish. Our employees understand that, holy cow, I'm actually being held accountable. I need to do my job. They have an opportunity to improve and succeed and show themselves. And they really start to flourish. It's not this doom and gloom job that they got to go suck up for 40 hours every week and go do. They actually become excited about it. Roads open up and the traffic goes away. Smooth sailing. We all stay in our lane and everybody is just moving. Our different departments are doing what they're supposed to do. They're not intertwining and going all over the place. Everybody is cruising along, not getting in each other's ways, and just eliminating the traffic. And that's because everybody's focused. When I'm in my lane doing my job, you're in your lane doing your job, and we're all doing the things that we're supposed to do, we are focused. We're moving forward. We're not hectic. We're not multitasking. We're not firefighting. We're not doing all those things. We're just focused on our portion of the improvement, our portion of the company. And last but not least, our companies really start to succeed. They start to do well during the downticks in the market, and they start to be able to actually move forward, progress, grow, and sustain for long periods of time versus fly-by-night type of attitudes. So where do you start? The bathroom. I love the bathroom. Remember I said I've been to all those facilities? How many's factory bathrooms look like that here? Most places I go to, this garbage can has piles of paper that are up to there. The floor doesn't look like it's been swept. I don't know, maybe there is a floor in there because it's usually just like a crust of dust or something. And it's like the area where, you know, you put the mask on in order before you go inside of there in order to do it. But the reality is that kind of sucks because it's the most intimate place that we actually utilize during the workday. And that just means that your people don't care about one another. I'm going to go take care of myself selfishly, soil this place, and make it disgusting. I don't care anybody else has to use it, right? It's real. When we start to take care of our bathroom, we start to put processes in place, we start to hold people accountable, we start to stay in our lane and do those type of things, right? It teaches respect. That, hey, you're not the only person that utilizes this facility. There's going to be people in there after you. Pick up after yourself. Clean up after yourself. Have respect for one another. Don't chuck your problem in your department over the fence to the next department so that they can clean up your mess. Have respect for one another. Give them your portion of the work on a silver platter, as perfect as you possibly can, because we have respect for one another. Detail and care starts to show that. Are we crossing our T's? Are we dotting our I's? When engineer hands off an optimization to our saw operator, does it have all the parts and pieces and everything necessary inside of it that it's supposed to? Or was he, really into it that day, chuck it over the fence, let's see what happens, they can deal with it. Too bad if they got to clean another part, right? No attention to detail. Creates easy visuals. If you come into our facility, and I hope someday you all get to, you will walk into our bathroom because it'll be the first place I lead you guys to because I'm so proud of it. And I will be like, check out our bathroom. And you'll be like, wow. No, that's just what I hope every time. But it's really cool. I mean, it creates a great visual. When people come into our facility, they know, like, not screwing around. Okay, these guys are ready to go. I've had new employees go in because they were on the cleaning duty with me, which is strange for them, I'm sure, but at the same time, we get through it, and they realize, holy cow, this place means business. Just two things. People who were just fluffing me during the interviewing process and really just trying to, fake it till they make it type of attitude, understand that we are not screwing around. And they last about 2 or 3 days and they're gone. They just vanish out of there because they're like, holy cow, I thought I was going to get to sit in some back corner and not have to do anything. They're like, dude, these guys mean business. I'm out of here. Not for me, right? And it's the pulse of your culture. Your bathroom, where it sits right now, and I'm not talking about if you have a corporate office or a main area that customers come and use and those type of things, because we make sure that a cleaning facility comes in and cleans it up for us and all that type of stuff. I'm talking about the corner bathroom in the back of the factory that only a handful of people use or even know about. How does that bathroom look? Go into that bathroom and you will have a complete gauge of the type of mentality that's going on inside of your facility. Questions? Yeah.
Since we all like off-the-shelf package solutions, can you give us a little glimpse into what it looked like when you guys first delineated what your lane is, what your roles and responsibilities were?
Sure. So I put a few notes down here just because I'm terrible at remembering all of them. We were 12,000 square feet when we started the manufacturing plant. We had 12 employees. 72,000 square feet now, 90 employees, right? The biggest one for me is that we had an 80% turnover rate. I mean, it was burn and turn inside of that facility. It was crazy. We had people running out of there as quick as they possibly could. Today we have a 2% turnover rate. And the majority of the time on our 2% turnover rate, it's because one of our employees, her dream job and her dream goal in life was to open up a coffee shop in Southern California, and we just bought her plane ticket to move to Southern California so she could open her coffee shop. And she was one of the most awesome people of all time, and we're happy for her. So that's what our 2% is today. Because there's just organically, we realize that not everybody wants to be at Inova for the rest of their lives. We can be a great stepping stone for them, and we have plenty of people that do want to make it the rest of their lives, and we try to make it that way for them. So that gives a little bit of a window into it. You know, just the 500,000 in sales versus 22 million is alone where that's at. That's pretty decent. Last but not least for us is we just have a great time. Going to work, sure, it's stressful at times. We've got orders that we've got to get out. It's not all roses and butterflies by any means, but we have a great time doing it. When we have a stressful day, people rally around each other versus going back into their holes and checking what email they wrote to protect their butts. Nobody's going in, well, like, I wrote this email, see, it's your fault, da-da-da, or like going back and forth. That stuff drives me crazy. What does it solve? If this person screwed up or we didn't have that, focus on the process, look at it, how do we solve that process? Versus scattering into the corners like cockroaches and making sure we, sent the proverbial email to protect our butt. I just don't get it. We go in there, we rally around a problem, no matter what, and we get it solved and we move forward. And that's really cool for me, but I think it's very valuable for the people there because they know they don't have to work in fear all day long. Thank you. Hope that helped paint it. Hold on, Mike.
Excuse me.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Nice.
I'd be interested to hear how your days differ from 9 years ago, maybe till 4.5 years ago, and then today, and kind of see how you have changed your process.
9 years ago, no exaggeration, 80 to 90 hours at Inova every single week, at least, literally. I lived there. Did not have a life outside of Inova at all. I mean, just 80, 90 hours a week like that. I work 40 hours a week. I'm in there sometimes later than that because I want to be here, because I want to weightlift in our gym or something like that. But we don't create a scenario where because I put in 100 hours means that, I'm top dog. I don't need to be in there before everybody else to show the front that, I work the hardest and do those type of things. Just because you work 100 hours doesn't mean you're getting anything done. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. I would rather be able to work 20 hours and get everything done that I need to get done and get the heck out of there. And that's what, I tell everybody else. It's not about working the 100 hours. If you're having to work 100 hours right now in order to get these things done, there's something going on. You need to start improving those processes. You need to start taking a look. Are you multitasking? Are you being organized about things? Why is it taking somebody 100 hours to do that, right? And trust me, when I have that conversation with a person, I've looked at it forever to make sure we're not doing it. Half the time I've usually split up the position in order to make sure I've got enough resources and manpower at it in order for that to happen. So time is a big part of that. But 9 years ago to today, I used to run around and was constantly putting out fires, constantly. Micromanaging things. Nobody could do anything better than I could do it. Just blowing people out of the way, not holding people accountable. Basically the opposite of everything we've talked about today. And that was 9 years ago, because that's how you thought you got it done. You thought you rolled up your sleeves and gritted it out and just worked harder than anybody else and did it. And the 80% turnover rate came from the fact that we didn't have things organized. Granted, My area of influence was much smaller because I was a sub-assembly supervisor for 5 people. So, I didn't really have a big area to be able to like help, create that much change at the time. But at the same time, everybody was doing that, and the door was just burning and turning and wide over. Now it's, new people come in and they go inside they do that first hour in the morning, usually attached to somebody else or helping with our cleaning standards because it's a really good training. Going through cleaning our bathrooms specifically, but our hallways, our break rooms, all that stuff is a really good way to train somebody on just how we think about processes and do those things. And then they sit in a meeting for 30 minutes where we stand up and talk about what's going on. And it just it's really cool to see new people come in and be like, holy cow, this is amazing, versus 9 years ago when new people came in and they were ready to put on a flak vest and Kevlar and go to war. Hope that answers it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Oh yeah, let's go. I got you.
So, what was the straw that broke the camel's back in 9 years ago?
Great question.
And then, how hard was it to change?
Sure.
And then, if this makes sense, what was the first thing you did? Because I think that's what the question is.
Yeah. Okay. No. Great. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying as well. So a few things happened. Number one, I started to personally not want to live that way. So the straw that broke the camel's back for me is, Lauren, who's the founder of the company at the time, one of the other plant managers that was there at the time. You could tell they were living in it. And in their minds and the way that they were going, I didn't see any hope for them to want to change, right? And I started, in my mind, which is I'm sure where a lot of people kind of jump off the ship or leave facilities, is I started to not see the ability that anything was going to ever change here. And I was like, well, this is not how I want to live my life. But I'm not a person who likes to run from things, because kind of like the easy target or the get out of jail free card, I've been used to having to deal with things for a bit and really trying to work through it. And I want to make sure I've eliminated any possible excuse before I made that decision. And I, started working with Lauren and talking to Lauren and just talking to him about lean specifically and these different types of things that we were doing, and some of like the communities that I was involved with, and what we were doing in our little area, because our little area of the sub-assembly area, we were killing it. Like we were just waiting on everybody all the time for everything. So it wasn't like, it was just this grandiose idea. We physically were sitting there all the time, but they would just suck us up to go into other facilities and then shoot us back, and just kind of got crazy. So we had a job, specifically a job that broke the camel's back for me. I was at the factory till 3 o'clock in the morning, spraying parts to go onto the back of a truck that was going out the door at 7 o'clock that morning. Got the last one sprayed, went home, slept for an hour, went back in, loaded the truck, jumped on a plane, flew on the plane to Downers Grove, which is close to here, to Downers Grove, got out of Downers Grove, where we were just completely undermanned and underpowered, and installed this entire product for 4 more days and just got the living crap kicked out of me. And when I came back, I said, either you give me the ability and you give me the autonomy to run the manufacturing plant the way that I would like to, or I can't do this anymore. And the greatest thing that's ever been said to me ever in my life, still to this day, was absolutely, I'll get out of your way. And from that moment on, October 5th, 2015 at this point, we drew a line in the sand. We started doing an hour every single morning. We stopped any new orders coming into our production facility and worked through all of our WIP, all of our work in progress. And until we got all that done, stopped multitasking, got one of them done one at a time, and started our training and doing our morning meetings. And that was the day. Line in the sand, no more. We're an extreme case, I will say that. We are an absolute extreme case. I mean, it was a disaster. But obviously, it creates a very good and accurate picture. For me, I didn't see any other way of salvaging the relationship for me and Inova, but I also didn't see any other way of salvaging Inova unless we took an absolute extreme measure, which we did. Plus, I'm just a little crazy, so going that way is the best way to go. Does that answer your question? Yeah, thank you. Great.
Guy, big hand.
All right.
I'll give you a second to make any notes on the reading list. You're going to be around, aren't you?
I'm not.
When are you leaving?
Right now.
Right now? Yeah. So unfortunately, Guy's leaving, but we do have contact information for Guy. If anyone has any questions, you can email him, text him, smoke signals, whatever.